Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to a new episode of the Slow Flower Show with Deborah Prinzing. I'm delighted to be here with Sydney Garvey of Garvey's Gardens. Hello, Sydney.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, we've been talking about this for a while. It's so good to see you again. Um, Last time I saw you face to face was at the Slow Flower Summit last year. So
Yeah, that was a great time. Yeah.
that's been almost a year that I've been thinking about trying to get you on the podcast.
No.
Um, so you are based in Grand Junction, Colorado, and you're kind of one of those triple threats. You grow, you design, and you do retail. Like, I don't know how you do it, but this has been sort of an ongoing theme of episodes that I've been wanting to do this year, and I've done a few talking about that hybrid of how, are you coming into retail from farming, or are you expanding into farming from retail? So tell us a little bit about Garvey's Gardens and what's the makeup and the structure of the business right now?
Yeah, so I started farming, and that was actually just out of grief and losing my daughter and recovering from HELP syndrome. So that was what led me to the garden. I was a math teacher previously, so
Okay.
uh, middle school and high school math. There's a lot of teachers in the flower industry. There's so many of us that have slowly converted over to flowers from education.
Interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, so I started my farm as a way to cope with that, and it just kind of blew up. To be honest, we live in Western Colorado, and it's the big fruit producing region in Colorado. And I just realized it's like nobody's growing flowers. Like everybody's growing peaches and pears and apples and wine. So many wineries, and nobody was growing flowers. And I was like,
Hmm.
hmm,
The climate for agriculture was in place and supporting a farm-based business. It's just that flowers, we have a few other slow flowers members in Western Colorado, but you're right, it's not predominant as a crop.
no, no, nothing like you in Washington.
Yeah.
For sure. It's much more rare out here. And then, so I did all sorts of different retail. I tried a farm stand. I tried CSAs. I did farmers markets for many, many years. And then everybody started asking me, where can I get your flowers other than the farmers market? And I was like, well, let me think about this. And I was walking to dinner. We're in our shop. I'm in my shop now. I was walking to dinner down the street, and this used to be a 1 hour photo place, and it went under, slash, they retired right before the pandemic. And so it had just been vacant for
Hmm.
3 years, 3-ish years.
Wow.
And like, man, that would be a really cute flower shop. I contacted the owners via a letter because I had no other way to contact them. And they called me back like the next day, and I did a little tour. I mean, it was like ceiling tiles were falling down, like it was all red leather, just velvet carpet. Like it was just disgusting. Honestly, it was like an 80s little time capsule. And so it took a long time to revitalize it. Signed the lease in October of 2022. We opened 3 days before Valentine's Day in 2023, which was crazy.
Wow.
I don't necessarily.
What year? So 2023. So you're in your just coming up.
Yeah.
You've just had your 1 year anniversary.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And before opening the shop, I had expanded into weddings as well in like 2021. So I was doing farming and then added weddings, and now we have the retail space. And then we started our own podcast in November of 2023, the Garvey's Gardens podcast too. So
Oh my
those are
gosh,
like
so many questions.
four.
You're not one to let moss grow under your feet, I guess is the saying, right?
No.
Do you think that's because of your background in math and sort of how your brain works, and like you just have a logical approach to things and you see the formula and you just go, okay, that's what I need to do.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I also, some of our, my husband and I met in high school, and some of our childhood friends are now living out here too. It's a big spot for people from the Front Range of like Denver and Colorado Springs and whatever, are slowly coming out this direction on the other side of the mountains. And his wife was just like, well, like just like decided and just done it. And he was like, yeah, that's just, so I think it's just always been there of like, yeah, once I have an idea and a semi thought process of how it's going to work, I just do it. So
Sydney, are you a Colorado native?
I am not. I'm originally from
Oh,
Atlanta, Georgia.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But originally you were living in the greater Denver metro area and
Yep.
migrated west. Yeah.
Yep. Hmm.
A lot more land, a lot more breathing room, I suppose.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But you were teaching there.
I was teaching there, and then when we moved over here, I was teaching here too.
Mm.
So we've been out on the Western Slope now for 8 years. So
Do you mind talking a little bit about your health and like what was the disease that you had, and then is that what caused your
yeah.
child to you to lose your
So
child?
yeah. So yeah, we had been doing lots of infertility hormones and everything else. So I have had a very long infertility battle that kind of culminated with I got pretty much it's like a very severe form of preeclampsia. So
Okay.
I was 22 weeks or so when I was hospitalized, and then it turned into HELP syndrome, which is I am not a doctor, so I always butcher it, but it's basically the H is like when your red blood cells just blow up. EL is the elevated liver, and LP is low platelets. And so it's kind of like a triple whammy. So we
Oh,
basically, I was just in
geez.
the hospital until one of our bodies gave up. And unfortunately, it was mine. And so I had an emergency C section at 24 weeks and a day. And she didn't survive. So she lived
Oh
for 40
gosh.
minutes. And then, yeah.
Oh,
Um,
I'm so sorry.
yeah. So it,
What an
really,
ordeal.
yeah. And that was before the pandemic in 2020. So that was in February of 2020. And so, like, right as I
Oh,
was,
right before the pandemic. Like you must have do you even remember 2020? It must have just been
I
a
mean,
really
it was
tough
kind of
time.
an experience for me because it was like right as I was ready from recovering from the C-section and everything, and like just ready to like go back out into the world shut down. And so it
Yeah.
was like, oh, like I can drive now. Oh no, like we literally can't go anywhere.
Yeah, and just the grief and the health, your mental and
Yeah,
physical health. I'm
yeah.
so
So one of
sorry
the
you had to go through that.
yeah, no, me too. I would never wish it on my worst enemy. But the I did. We lived on the farm at that point, and so um, that was just one of the things when I got home from the hospital and I was still like bedridden. Rochelle Grayer of Pith and Vigor, she had a class that popped up on my Instagram and stuff. So I was like, I think I need to do this. Like the
Mm,
farm had been, we bought it from people that used it for 4-H and animals and everything. So they had a hog pen, chicken coop, duck coop, turkey coop. The
wait, but
outdoor
you didn't get the animals, you just got the coops.
I just got the coops.
Yeah.
And then they had donkeys and horses. And so the field where I now grow the flowers is their old hay and alfalfa field. We took out the round pen. So, like, the whole farm needed a redesign. And so I kind of took that on. I knew I had already told my school, like, I'm still taking maternity leave. Like, I'm not coming back this school year. Like, I just need the time.
Yeah.
Um, and that was the best decision. And I just kind of threw myself into designing our farm. And I honestly we grew veggies, we grew flowers, we grew herbs. Like, we didn't really know what was going to stick. And then once the flowers started blooming, I was like, this is a thing.
Mm,
I was
mm,
giving away flowers to our neighbors and putting them in our own house, and
mm,
that I filed the LLC paperwork for Garvey's Gardens. Yeah.
mm. I know Rochelle Grayer. When she had her magazine, she did a story about me as a disruptor. So I haven't talked to her for a while, and she was one of the first people to do an online landscape design course, as I recall. So you
Yep.
were able to, even if you were just in like recovery mode, you could just look at a screen and take notes and educate yourself.
Yeah.
Had you done much gardening or growing before that, Sydney, or did you just kind of
Um,
have it in you? Like you,
I mean,
okay, I can figure this out.
we did a little bit. The funny thing is, when we moved out to the Western Slope, we were like, well, maybe we want like 7 to 10 acres. Like, now we laugh. We're like, oh no. Our farm
What do you have?
is 2 2/3 of an
Yeah,
acre, or
and
so
that's enough.
yeah. And half of it, so out here in Western Colorado, irrigation water is like the lifeblood. And so the irrigation canal that we get our irrigation water from splits our land in half. So half of it is dry and half of it is irrigated. And so obviously the farm's on the irrigated part. Um, So yeah, we've just been trialing and erroring and keeping going. That's honestly, it's a big experiment. And I think that's the like math science part of us, is just that we just keep going as if it's a big experiment. I think before we moved into the farm, we were always in smaller spots. And so we didn't really have the opportunity to like do in-ground gardening. We always had raised beds and containers and all of that going, but we had never done anything at scale. So out here in Western Colorado, the irrigation canals are vital. Colorado, as we know, is like very water savvy and depleted and all the things. It's
Yeah.
very There's water law is huge here in the state, and so um, our irrigation canal cuts through our property and basically cuts it in half. So we have about an acre and a half that's irrigated, and the rest is not irrigated. So the farm is on the acre and a half that is irrigated.
So you kind of inherited that when you bought the property, that you knew you had irrigation for that portion.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel about the capacity? Do you have enough land to grow what you want to grow, or because
Yeah. Yeah. So I think so. We have about a half acre that's now a big rose garden. It's a little more decorative, but it's still for production. And then I took down the spot that used to be the round pen for the animals, and that is now where the hoop house and shade house is for ranunculus, anemones, mums, scented geranium, all of those things that need a little bit more. That used to be the hay and alfalfa field for the like horses and donkeys and everything. That is about, so I have the east beds, which are 40 feet long, and we have 15 of them or so. And
wow,
those are perennials and reseeding annuals. And then the west side is, I just added a couple more dahlia rows this spring. So
of
um,
course.
15, 16 rows, 40 feet long. And then we have some other raised beds and shrubs around. And yeah.
So with the high tunnel, you get some early season crops, a little bit of a season extension. And so what is your season like? April through October, or is it a little bit longer than that?
It's a little bit longer. Our frost dates, yeah, we're about 6B, 7A for a zone. And so, yeah, it's outside. It's really April through October. I do force tulips hydroponically, and we do a big amaryllis and paper white program in the shop and everything that everybody loves. And then the forcing of tulips. So we really try, it's really just November,
Yeah,
honestly,
it's
where it's like
amazing.
after those frost hits until the amaryllis start to come on. That's like our time where we change. We have a stem bar in our shop, or a make your own bouquet bar. Turns to dried flowers that we've been
Mm.
drying throughout the season.
Well, there was something that I saw either in one of your newsletters or on your social media that caused me to want to pull that quote and use it in our forecast for
Yeah.
the Flowers Floral Insights. I don't know if it was last year or this year, but I think it was this year, where you talked about what struck me was you talked about having retail as an outlet for your own flowers, but that you also could then support other flower farmers.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you don't have to supply, you're not your only exclusive supplier for the retail shop.
Yeah. And I think I learned that from weddings. So we are 100% American grown. Our farm first, Colorado second, the rest of the US third. And so I just learned that from weddings, of like the stress to try to grow every single element on your own farm, and then Mother Nature and everything. Like, it's okay to bring in flowers from other farms.
Hmm.
And so out here, because we are such an agricultural area, since I started my farm in 2020, there's been a few other farms that have come up, and every year there's a couple that come up and a couple that go down. And but they know that as long as they have like a good availability list, they send me weekly, and that I'll try to order when I can, and especially for weddings. So it's been a nice way I harvest straight from the farm, bring it right in the shop. All those flowers come into the shop or for our weddings, and then I supplement as needed. So
Wow, that's great. So you weren't doing retail per se before you opened the brick and mortar shop, and you said you had some other channels like farmers market and CSAs. What did you was that sort of a trial period to sort of figure out what do customers want and how to price and sell? I mean, how did that kind of education inform your decision to go hardcore and open retail?
Yeah, I think it was just the volume, and then also the fact that with the farmers markets, you're just there one day a week, and then, oh, I need to do another farmers market, and that's another sales tax license and all these other things. And
Mm,
that's just again, one other day of the week. Um, and then you're tied to those days. And if you miss one, like that's a ton of your income is gone. And so it was really a matter of balancing everything to do a good quality of life with then also selling the flowers.
mm,
Then my employees will hear me say that and be like, "Oh boy," I'm like, I live in the shop and on like I live on the farm too, so like I just it's every day. But I do think it has helped. Just the consistency aspect of it has
yeah.
really helped. And then that way too with weddings, our biggest farmers market here is on Sunday mornings. And if I have a Saturday wedding, I did it once where I was at the farmers market the next morning, and so many customers were like, "Sydney, why are you so tired? Like, why are you?" And I was like, "Never again am I doing a farmers market
Right.
or wedding."
Right. Yeah,
And
that's a interesting, and the revenue from a wedding is probably a little more predictable as well than
yeah,
just standing at a farmer's market.
yep. And then, the farm stand on our farm, we're kind of tucked away, so it was a little bit harder for people to find us. But then also, like, we have our dog and we have other things that are, it made me stop everything I was doing to then go greet them and like do I just it isn't my personality just to like hang back and just let people come on my property and like so
Yeah.
that didn't really work. And the CSA model worked really well when it was just the farm. I carried it over when we opened the shop. I had already sold subscriptions for last season, so for 2023. But the shop was open and trying to do with like shop everyday orders plus subscriptions, and everything was just a nightmare. So
Wow.
we
Wow.
stopped that. And I do think the pricing and everything comes from a lot of experience, but I do think flower farmers as a whole definitely discount way more than they should of their price of their flowers. And that's a big passion of mine is just making sure that flower farmers are profitable just like florists, and that they know the flower is Allison Ellis is like the flower math queen. Um,
Right.
so I'm a student of
Thank
hers
goodness.
and
Yeah,
hers
thank
and
goodness you've got resources.
yeah,
Um, Sydney, how big is the shop? Square
it's only
footage.
700 square feet, so it's very
Okay.
small. So
Okay.
this year, as we keep expanding and like daily orders keep coming in, and then it's like, oh, and then weddings. And so we're now doing like wedding design exclusively out of the farm. And then shop orders are in here. And slowly but surely, I have a feeling I'll have to keep more on the farm in our farm cooler and like trickle it into the shop because there's only so much our cooler can hold and the
Yeah.
space can hold. And we've learned very quickly that like the space behind me is really our workspace. Only two of us can really work comfortably back here
Mhm.
without bumping into each other and everything. So
So you've kind of created an event production space at the farm, and it sounds like you've got a cooler and you've got plenty of room.
yep.
It must be nice to keep it separated.
Yeah.
And then you have the walk-in customers who want you to make something on the spot. You need that space for making an arrangement or a couple arrangements.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yep. Definitely. Because we're only about a half block off of Main Street in Grand Junction. So
Yeah.
a lot of walk-in customers. So
Was there a retail flower shop before you opened, or how does that, what kind of void in the marketplace did you
yeah.
notice?
So there was really when I opened, there's really one flower shop in all of the Grand Junction metro area. Um, and she would buy for me when she could, from our farm and whatnot. But that she was basically it. There were a couple people that were doing things more like studio florist model out of their garage, and but there was nobody that was doing 100% American grown or saying yeah I only
Right.
want local flowers. For that you kind of had to go to the farmers markets, and
Yeah.
so now yeah
Right.
our
Which
shop,
you can't do year round.
yeah, no, not at all. So
I'm so impressed that you've built Garvey's Gardens brand on that ethos that you're going to use this sort of pebble in the pond approach for your sourcing. And I'm just curious, do customers get on board or do they question that? I think you
I
make it
think,
so much fun that they're like excited about what your story.
yeah, I think, I mean, they definitely get on board. We get a lot of people coming in that just like see florist on Google and stop in, and then they walk in and they're like they just look around and they just don't really understand what a modern US grown flower shop looks like. And we have rotating pedestals that I got from an art gallery. So it's kind of, displaying them as art like they are. And then we always have some wraps and our stem bar. And then we support a ton of local makers that I've met at the farmers market throughout the years as little accoutrements. So anything that's like floral related. We have gift items in the shop too. So I think it's definitely a change. We get a lot of questions about like, do you have carnations? I'm like, and so there's just a lot of education that goes into it. And for the most part, everybody's like really embracing that and saying like, oh, you're where I come to if I want really unique flowers. And that's really nice to hear.
Yeah.
So
And I would hope that there's a sense of it feels good to support local farmers a little bit in that
mm,
um, sort of subtext to what you're doing. And Grand Junction is one of the largest metropolis hubs west of on the West Slope, right?
it is the biggest city between Denver and Salt Lake. Yep.
Wow. Wow.
So,
Well, Sydney, I was going to pop up your website so people could kind of see what you're doing and then you can kind of walk us through it.
okay.
And
Good.
yeah, and you'll see it on the screen. I think I popped it up, or this is not your homepage. Hang on.
That's okay.
You tell me which you can navigate for me, but I love your
Great.
flash page, locally grown flowers that are healthy for you and the planet. I mean, that's your message right there.
Yep.
Um,
Our Lysianthus
no,
from the farm.
oh, did
Yeah.
you say the photo is of your Lysianthus?
Yep.
Love it. Love it. Bouquets and wedding flowers from our Grand Junction, Colorado floral shop and Palisade, Colorado flower firm. How far is Palisade from Grand Junction? Did I ask you that?
It's only about 20 minutes.
Got it.
So
Okay.
yeah, it takes me about
That's why you
15
said
minutes
if you're
to get
not at the farm, you're at the shop.
yeah, yeah.
What
Bar at all.
Okay,
Um,
should we look at fresh
so yeah,
flowers first?
yes, go for it. So we're different in that I literally just have this one item up for people to customize their arrangements. So we do a drop down of the different prices and sample pictures. We try to change it, you know, quarterly-ish. It's really like 3 times a year that we change it based on the season.
On the website.
Yeah, and that way just to keep it seasonal because like, yeah, we're
Mm,
not gonna have some of those and that type of thing.
sure.
So this is if they want to order delivery, they just order this one option, and so they can choose their price point. They can choose if they want a short or tall vase, what color vase they want. We use the Kendall series from Accent Decor for all of these, just to keep it easier. And then, the gift items of like, who's it for, so that we know who we're asking for at the door. What occasions, is there anything that like they're allergic to avoid? Do you want a message? So this has just made it easier of like, here's where you order flowers.
Mm,
Because as we all know, like we can't just constantly have the same thing week in and week out. That just isn't
mhm.
how we operate. What's blooming on the farm today might not be blooming next week anymore.
Right.
This way it's all a designer's choice, but based on the color palette.
Yeah,
Um,
I wanna highlight that. I really appreciate this right here, Sydney. Our floral designers will create a beautiful arrangement based on your choices above and the seasonal flowers we have available at the time of your pickup delivery. The fact that you built your business out of the gate with that
yeah,
perspective is m it's just magic because you don't have to apologize for anything. You're like, "Oh, this is how we do it here at Garvey's Gardens." So I love that.
yeah. And it does take a little bit of adjustment for people, I would say, especially like switching over from traditional florist. We always say like we flip traditional floristry on its head. And so
Mhm.
it takes a little bit of coaxing sometimes, but yeah, once people get used to it, then they really like it, and they'll know, like, hey, if you have this available, I would love it, but if not, that's fine.
Mm. Yeah.
And so we get a lot of
Bright and
requests like that.
yeah, and then they can choose from bright and colorful, classic, neutral, and bold and moody. I mean, it's excellent. You're doing their thinking for them and like simplifying the choices because otherwise, back in the FTD days, there's 900 choices, and by the way, the photo is never going to resemble the finished product anyway, right?
Right, and that's why I was just like, I can't be updating the website daily and making mock-ups all the time and, like, updating with anything that we have on our pedestals in the shop, like, taking pictures, uploading those to the website, like, that's just so much time, and so this way, if we change the photos with the seasons, we're
Yeah.
about ready. Mother's Day's done, we're about ready to change it, for summer flowers, but yeah,
Should we look
so
at
it just
weddings?
yes, go for it.
I will also
Um,
just say I like this photo here that we have on the screen. You've got the pedestal and you've got the kind of little theatrical curtain behind it. So it's really is a neat presentation that people see when they walk into the shop.
yeah, it is. That
Love
used
it.
to be a
Okay, so say that again.
closet that we turned into a, like, little photo spot for all of our
Your little
flowers.
stage. Oh, that's
Yeah, no,
great.
it works. But
So
yeah.
Flowers by
All right.
Garvey's Gardens, locally grown wedding flowers. So your main buckets are the full service and the DIY pickup. How do those break out?
So really, we always do a consult for full service pickup. So we use Calendly forward in June, and as soon as I put the Calendly link on there for scheduling a wedding consult, nobody has actually like filled out the contact us form. People just jump on and schedule a time on our calendar. And
Because
so
you give them
that's been
a
really, really,
complimentary 30-minute consultation.
yeah. And then when you
Got
click
it.
on one of those, it pops up a different window, and then it asks a whole bunch of questions. Like once you do the time, and then um, it'll ask, yeah, we have names, emails. Do you want to do it virtually on Google Meet because we have so many destination couples coming to Colorado, or do you want to meet in our shop if you're local? Um, Full name of fiance, wedding date, venue, budget. The budget, because we just have a drop down where you can kind of see where it's, if it's under 1,500, you're really looking at DIY pickup. Up to three
Yep.
grand, you're looking at really just like delivery drop off type of thing, not setup. Just so then that way our customers have an idea, our wedding couples have an idea in their mind of like, okay, like this is my budget, but according to them, I'll probably be in the delivery range or something like that.
This is so excellent. I love this because they can kind of self-select without any kind of awkward conversation. And then when you have the consult, you know this already, right?
Yep.
Wow. Love it. Love it.
And yeah, how many people are in your wedding party? So it's all right there in our website that they sign up for it. This is where we've put our blog posts, which are all about the weddings that we've done in the past. And we
Oh
update it
my
with any
gosh.
news that are happening.
Beautiful. Which one should I show everybody? I love that. You're talking about the relationship then.
And so then we go through kind of what the wedding was like, and then photos from the wedding. She opted for a very luscious flower crown. That's on the monument, the Colorado National Monument, which is really pretty.
Oh my
She loved
goodness. Yeah.
um, yeah,
I
and
mean, she's
then
already a non-traditional bride wearing an emerald green gown that's embroidered. That's
right,
not like
and yeah, so that way, if you go back to full service, perfect, or
yeah, let's look at one more. These are really fun.
yeah,
Sorry,
there's lots of info for
I
everybody.
probably could navigate better, but I love seeing it. This one looks kind of colorful. Colorful summer wedding along the river.
John were great. There's a lot of sunflowers for in memory of his sister.
Mm,
We always try to put that in there. All the
mm.
vendors. This is centerpiece bar. So during cocktail hour, guests came up and grabbed a bud vase, and I was there helping facilitate making bud vases for them to bring to their tables.
Wow. What a wonderful interactive thing to do.
Yeah, so some until hour while Allie and John and family were out getting all their photos done. This one was one of our best performing reels because the we did hanging bud vases on the back
Oh,
with
yeah.
colored ribbon. So those kind of floating in the wind has been one of our big ones. But yeah, so it's all local and still all American grown. The DIY pickup is we'd get, like I said, a lot of destination couples, a lot of people coming here to just elope. So for the elopements, a lot of people fly in to Junction and then like we'll drive to Moab to elope or just elope here on the or drive to Aspen or there's so many places. And so people can get like a bulk bucket straight from the farm. And again, it's the general color palettes, so blushy neutral or bold and beautiful, depending their vibe is. And that's really just straight from the farm. So I will harvest directly into the bucket and put it in my cooler, and then they'll pick up. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's wonderful. And then you kind of just put the decision making in their hands to just have all the add-ons for personals and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I have found that most people still want a consult because they want something a little more custom than just picking out the color palette from the website. It is mostly just like the elopement bouquet boutonniere that people will order from the website, or a bulk bucket. We do a lot of bulk buckets for parties too, so it doesn't have to just be weddings.
Yeah. Right. Can we click on your podcast tab? I want people to hear about what you're using podcasting as a marketing tool to connect with local customers, right?
Yeah, and we have lots of flower farmers that listen to. We always do. So the we I'm talking about is me and my marketing manager, Audrey, who's right there on the right.
And fun.
It's me and Audrey, and we always do one episode a month, like that month on the farm. So the tasks that I'm working on the flower farm, we have a seed starting challenge, but then we also do a monthly gardening checklist. So literally it's what I use to keep myself in line and like, okay, make sure you're doing these things. And so it's a really good way to reach not only local gardeners, and we always do one about weddings every month, and we bring in somebody to interview every month. So today's that went live when we're recording this episode of Slow Flowers podcast is our debrief on Mother's Day. So
love it. Oh, that's wonderful. So people need to subscribe to that. And yeah, well, I love it. You're joining the podcasting world, but you've been doing this for about a year, right?
Yeah, we really enjoy it. And Audrey is getting married herself in July, and so we've been to batch some things and whatever. But it's been fun to like interview wedding vendors that we know and love, but then also be like, okay, so how is this going to apply to your wedding, Audrey? And so that's been really fun.
That's great.
So, and other business owners in Grand Junction. So we do bud vases at like our local coffee shop called Kiln, and also a local bakery called Sweet Kiwi. And we've had both of those owners on the podcast with us, and just other business partnerships that we, have an outlet for that.
I mean, it's so much about community and collaboration, and rising tide floats all boats. So it sounds like the small business community in Grand Junction is really everybody helps each other and also does business together. I love that cross promotion.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a small at heart for sure. I always joke that it's about a half degree of separation between everybody, like you're talking to somebody. It's definitely growing, like all of Colorado is growing, but very much a small town at heart. And yeah, we just call it the Grand Valley. It goes Palisade and then Clifton and then Grand Junction and then Fruita. And then there's a couple other smaller towns, Loma and Mac, and then you hit the Utah border. So
wow.
We're a nice little small community, but still the biggest city in between Denver and Salt Lake. So
yeah, that's an important distinction. Well, so you're going to film a little video of the shop so we can add it to this. And honestly, I'm so curious to see what you're growing. And so if you want to throw in a few surprise photos or clips from your farm, that would be great. Again, going back to this idea of like, you're now the true definition, the old-fashioned definition of florist, which is one who grows and designs flowers and plants. And that was the way it was before, I don't know, in the first half of the 20th century, and then kind of things disappeared. We got you know, a lot of layers built into the floral industry with wholesalers and distributors, and people forgot how to grow. And like somehow you're reclaiming that. And I just love that you're making it integral to your business. I just want to know if you have any advice for people who are thinking about adding a retail component because it was a big leap for you.
It's a huge leap. And honestly, I think the fact that I didn't know how much of a huge leap it was very good. Helpful. Um, I mean, 'cause I just set my mind to it and it was like, okay, cool. And I have to have a team and I have to, set up all the HR stuff, which is a whole nother ball of wax. And then, how are you gonna bring in other gift items and, setting up all these systems that you had no idea that you really needed, but you do. And so
Mm-hmm.
it really my biggest advice always is just to start.
Yeah.
If you're thinking
Yeah.
about it, like just sitting on the fence isn't gonna do you any good. So you just always want to just get started and you will figure it out along the way and you will find people to ask help when you need it. Definitely use I go, talk to like your state department of revenue if you need help getting that stuff set up. Ours has like a little appointment feature. And so when I started my shop and I was hiring people, I just went in and was like, I don't know what I need to file, but I'm going to start hiring people. Help me. And they did. And so, just
Lovely.
take that time and ask for help. And, if you're on the fence, just decide one way or another and you'll figure it out along the way.
Um, Sydney, did you have a business plan or because it was sort of an extension of the farm, did you just kind of roll forward and just,
I mean, so I will say I do have my bachelor's degree is in business administration and stats. So, yeah, I
that
have
helps.
one. It has immensely changed multiple times. So I wouldn't, I don't know. I'm not a huge like supporter of the like small business associations business plan template. I think it's very rigid because I do think with flower farming and then flower shop and like how fast it does take off and grow and change that it just needs to be a living working document
Mm-hmm.
like Google Drive or something that you can spend some time semi-annually or annually updating. And so in that way I do think for sure I don't love doing it just annually because things change so much in a year. I'm a big quarterly planner person.
Mm-hmm.
So
You mean
things
looking at your P&L and just trying to figure out cash flow and what's your most profitable activity, that sort of thing?
marketing. I mean, cash flow I look at all the time, but
Yeah.
um, also, but just like marketing and like what's worked, what hasn't worked. Like we tried splitting up our Instagram into like a shop account, a weddings account, a podcast account, and then people got very confused. So we're just going back to just at Garvey's Gardens. But like it's worth trying. Like
Yeah.
people understand, like you try things. It's the only way you're gonna know if something is a good idea or not, is that you have to
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I
Interesting.
always try it for a quarter and then evaluate it. Is it working? Is it not working? If it's not working, then change it for the next quarter and, or just adjust it a little bit and then keep going.
Yeah, I
So
think
yeah,
sometimes we're so like I don't know, loyal to these processes and systems when if they were to change, no one would notice but us. And I'm always say that about deadlines. Like, okay, well, this issue of Soulflower's Journal was supposed to drop on this date, but we were waiting on photos that haven't come through. And Robin, my partner, will say, no one's going to be mad at us if we come out next week. We're the only ones who are upset about it. So, I mean, of course, there's things that you can't control, like weddings and the dates of major holidays. But other than that, you've got a little flex, right?
yeah, yeah. Most of like the CEO level business owner things, you can, you know, definitely still schedule it in the calendar, but like if it needs to get put off a little bit, that's okay. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was also the biggest leap. Like the deliveries and the daily orders and stuff isn't a huge leap from if you're doing that out of your farm or your studio. But the bigger leap was the major holidays. The major holidays were the biggest leap to like as a retail shop. the influx of customers, like the workflow
Yeah.
around that, how much product to order from our other farms that we partner with, you know, that was definitely the bigger issue with the retail side of things that took a lot of learning.
Right. So Mother's Day just happened. It looks like you have a podcast episode, like breaking it down and
Yeah,
evaluating it. Not so.
but
So just give us the executive summary of how Mother's Day went.
Mother's Day actually went really, really well. Aside from a couple of shipments coming from some California farms getting lost in FedEx land. So that was the big stressor. But otherwise, it went really, really well. We have separated doing delivery. So any pre-orders, we do delivery from our farm and not our shop to keep our shop open and clear. And that has been
Smart.
huge, and just very nice logistically. And we build for such a big holiday, we have built flower arrangements on the farm and then brought them in to the
Hmm.
shop. And that's helped a lot too. But it
Hmm.
was super successful. And really, Mother's Day is a whole week in our shop versus Valentine's Day is like 2 days. So,
Such a
yeah.
good point. Yeah. Sydney, I noticed you have really highlight all your employees and your team members at the shop on your website. Are some of them also working on the farm, or do you have another crew on the farm?
I don't have another crew on my farm. It's mostly my husband and I on the farm. If it's a big planting day, we will bring our team. Our team knows how to run everything. We have the different areas of farm, podcast, weddings, and shop, but everybody can kind of mesh as needed, which is really nice too. For like big weddings, we have a built-in pool of freelancers, quote unquote, that are
Yeah.
already knowing what happens. But we do have a specific wedding team because that's very important to have people that are the leads on the weddings. But yeah, in terms of farm help, we do a couple big planting days, and that's like all hands on deck. But in the fall, we do a few like really big cleanup days and dahlia digging days and all those things. And so that's when it's all hands on deck on the farm. But for the most part, it's just me and my husband during the main season on the farm, doing irrigation, and then I harvest in the mornings and stuff because we live on the farm. So it's
What's your
really
husband's name?
easy, Justin. So yeah.
So
Yeah,
Justin's on board with all of this.
yeah, yeah. He didn't really have a choice, but he loves it. He especially loves the weddings, and
That's
which I
awesome.
think is great. And he is, yeah, a super big support, and definitely wouldn't be where I am without him. So yeah, and my team
I
is
love it.
amazing.
I
So
love it. I love the way you have everyone's photos. Everyone's wearing the t-shirt that you're wearing now with your logo, which is it's cute little modern tulips.
yep,
And that was the branding you started with before you opened the retail store. You had it on the farm, right?
yep. Yeah, we just kind of expanded it a little bit. I filed a DBA to do flowers by Garvey's Gardens for the shop, because a lot of people would just be like, Garvey's Gardens, are you a landscape company? No, no, no. So that's why we did flowers, for the shop side of things. But yeah, no, it's a good time, and my staff is amazing, and yeah, we have lots and lots of things going on. So when Mother's Day just wrapping up, the shop for whatever reason does slow down over the summer. I think people just, are out of town. They're in their own gardens, which is phenomenal. Please be in your own
Yeah.
garden, gardening and everything. And but that's when our wedding season really picks up here in June. So June is our busiest wedding month this year. Oftentimes it switches between like June or like September. It's
Yeah.
always one or the other. And our wedding season really does wrap up around October because it's Colorado and we start getting snow and really cold. So sometimes we will
No.
have a winter wedding here and there, but come October, like October through May is really the shop's time to shine, and then June through September is the weddings. So
I love it.
yeah,
That's wonderful. What a life that you've created out of, such a
yeah,
difficult time. And I really appreciate you sharing that because I don't think that um, things happen abstractly. The universe gives you a path, and you've chosen to walk down it and make it this beautiful, enriching kind of, I don't know, gift to your community as well as to your own physical and mental health. And it's just really inspiring.
thanks. Yeah.
Okay, Sydney, I'm going to let you go because the shop's opening pretty soon, right?
It is opening, yeah. I got
We tried to do this before the doors open, so I think you have 7 minutes.
all good. We don't usually have people just like clamoring to get in, so it's like slowly but surely. But yeah, and that's the nice thing about a smaller shop too. I mean, there's pros and cons, but the smaller shop definitely keeps it a little bit more contained, and you don't have people just like hanging out all day. So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
One
Anyway,
last question. Any of your former math students coming in and saying, "Oh, Mrs. Garvey, I took, algebra from you."
yep, and actually, like, one of my previous students worked for me for a while, but yeah, no, it's been crazy. One of my previous students is getting married June 1st, and I'm doing her wedding, like, she's doing bulk buckets, and I was like, "You're kidding," but it was really nice to see her.
How did you get so old already?
I was like, "Oh my gosh," I feel like that says more about me than her, but,
I love it.
it yeah, no, it's been really fun to see them come in and chat and, yeah, see them living their lives and
Yeah.
just also to show them that, like, you know, you don't have to stay in one career forever too. I think that's been nice for them to see. Um, just the
Yeah.
change between like, oh yeah, like I was teaching and then my life was completely upended and I decided to go this other path and yeah.
Right. You're right. It's a great role model for young people to see that they're, um, adults can make changes and make decisions that influence their whole future. So I love that. Okay, have a great weekend. So great to meet with you, and look forward to the video and some photos to share.
Yeah,
And we'll make sure at soulflowerspodcast.com that all your social places are listed so people can start finding and following you. Because even though you're not changing the flowers on your website, on your retail site, I
yeah,
know you're changing them. You post all the time on social media, so that's where you get
yeah,
the latest and greatest, right?
yeah, it's very true. Yep.
Okay,
So,
thanks so much,
thanks so much
Sydney.
for having me, Deborah. Yep.
Oh, I loved it.
Okay, this is our shop in downtown Grand Junction, Alpine Bank building, our sign, our cute pink bench and our logo. So come on in. So we have our base wall, checkout counter. That looks back to our work area, and it does go back there just a little bit. We have a little parking lot, and here's our shop. So we always have some wraps ready to go, some pedestal arrangements, dried flowers, local makers. These are Poppy Mountain candles. And then we have our make your own bouquet bar. Right there. Lots of flowers from our farm, including these garden roses. That one's Love Song, Coco Loco, anemones, peonies, and then Library of Flowers, which is a perfumery in Denver, and some cards, hanging bud vases from a maker out of Denver as well. Over here we have our Blue Corn candles. So Blue Corn Candle Company is in Montrose, Colorado, and they do taper candles and a whole bunch of other candles, but 100% beeswax. We have all the different colors and all the different sizes. And lots of jewelry. And this one I just made today that has our garden roses, honey Dijon, and life of the party. A cute little petite arrangement. And that's the front of our shop. Hi everybody, welcome to our flower farm in Palisade, Colorado, close to the Utah border. I am standing in our east beds, and this is where we have perennials and self-sowing annuals and daffodil bulbs, and up there the white is our irrigation line coming from the canal, And then as I pan the other direction towards the sun, those are stone fruit trees to kind of do a wind buffer. And then the west beds down there have all of our dahlias, lisianthus, snapdragons, you name it. Most annual things are in the west beds. And then in front of me, I'll turn around and it's just our barn and tractor in our barn. And also the hoop house doesn't have a covering on it right now, but we're in between like where it needed the covering, but we don't quite need the shade cloth yet. So that's the field part of our farm. I know it's windy here. So this is the original small garden test spot on the farm. And you can see behind there is our trailer cooler. And it's mobile and wonderful and cooled by a CoolBot. But this is the original garden, which now I've converted it into an iris garden and perennials and roses in a nice little seating area. And the salvia is just about to go bananas, which is around the edges of it. And then that is our little flower shed that used to be our flower stand. And we have all sorts of roses in front of it. It's very windy today, so the boxes are everywhere. And yeah, so this is one area of the roses, and in between are some peonies. And again, there's that garden, our farmhouse, our doggy Dot. And then this whole area over here is all roses as well. So we have over 250 roses. This is Hot Cocoa in full bloom. She's gorgeous. And Princess Charlene is right there. And down here, where there's no more gravel, that's the new rose garden. Okay, this is Honey Dijon. So pretty, but we are at the edge of the original rose garden, and then we just planted so many more roses along here. So now I'm in the rose garden area, and we just planted 75 more rose bushes this season. We weren't going to expand, but we had a chicken coop right here that we took out, and it just extends right on the main rose garden that we have. And so I was like, well, we're gonna plant some more. But you can see up here, from here all the way to the fence back there are more roses. And there's lots and lots of roses on the other side too. So we have over 250 established rose bushes on our farm as well. And it goes all the way up until our flower shed that I used to do as a farm stand, and our memory garden. So right here is our memory garden, and it is full of irises now, and the irises are just about done, but I will show you guys. And then the salvia is about to go bananas, so it is lined in salvia. That is just, well, right there it already kind of is going bananas, but there's a whole bunch of irises in a nice sitting area and everything. And then that is our flower trailer cooler. We converted an enclosed trailer into our cooler, so that way we can use it on the farm and then also take it to farmers markets, weddings, you name it. We're not doing farmers markets anymore, so it's mostly on the farm as our cooler and for weddings. And then this whole area, that's a crabapple tree. This whole area has roses, flower shed, and then over there is roses too. Okay, so because we talked about it on the podcast, I did want to show everybody the irrigation canal that runs through our property. So you can see it right there. It's like a little creek. And then that's the Grand Mesa of Colorado. And then behind me are the Book Cliffs. Mount Garfield's right there, covered up by that tree at this angle, but it's very pretty. So all of our irrigation water comes from this canal, and it is pumped from the Colorado River. So it is river water, so we have a lot of filtration on our system. And then right on, if it'll switch over, there we go. There's the rose garden right there on the other side of the canal. So where we're standing are the east beds, and then there's a row of, well, 2 rows of stone fruit trees, and then there's the west beds before you hit our neighbor's vineyard. Each side of the field has at least 15 rows, 40 feet long, and here in western Colorado we're not quite at bloom yet, but we're getting closer. So these are cherry trees and plum trees and peach trees, and then this is lisianthus and snapdragons, which are starting to bloom very slowly, and then the rest of this whole field is dahlias, and we overwintered with quite a bit of success, honestly, this year. And then we did plant a few rows brand new as well. And then we finish off with apple and pear trees. Some raised beds that used to be fruit are no longer anything, except for weeds. And you can kind of see over there is a bucket washing station by the old hay bales, and it just makes a big loop around the farmhouse. But yeah, so we have dahlias, snaps, lissies, sunnies, and then a whole bunch of perennials and other reseeding annuals. Cosmos, zinnias, all those will be planted up on the east beds soon.